Hi everyone, welcome to the COVID-19 Small Business Support webinar. My name's Karen Ballantyne and I'm from the Small Business team in New South Wales Treasury. The purpose of this webinar series is to support your small business with information on the support that's available to help you in this challenging time. We understand that you might have technical difficulties watching today, so we'll be sharing this video with participants after the session. Before we begin, I'd like to start with some housekeeping. You'll first see the presentations by our speakers. On the right of your screen, there's a text box that will be displayed throughout the presentation. If you have a question for our speakers, just type it here and they'll answer them after the video. With so many people registered for the webinar, we won't be able to answer them all, but we'll try and pick out the most common questions. We're also hosting a live poll to get your feedback on the webinar. To access this, just click the poll icon at the top of your screen. Today, we'll be hearing from Service New South Wales about their one-stop shop support, Revenue New South Wales around tax relief, Safe Work New South Wales around a healthy workplace, Training Services New South Wales for you and your team, and the Small Business Commission, your small business advocate, followed by a Q&A. I'd like to welcome Alex Geddes from Service New South Wales to the panel.
Hello, my name's Alexandra Geddes and I'm the Director of Strategy in Service New South Wales for Business, which is part of Service New South Wales. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today to talk through the support that's available through Service New South Wales to support you and your small business through these difficult times of the COVID-19 pandemic. Service New South Wales should be your first port of call for information and guidance on government support for your small business during these difficult times. On the Service New South Wales portal, we have an information hub, and that provides information to you on guidance and support available across all the levels of government. We have information that is changing regularly and to keep you up to date with the latest information that's available. There's information on the hub about training and education, the financial assistance that's available to you, information on online events that are being run, as well as information on employees and apprentices. So this is really great information that we hope that you'll find useful as well. You can access this information at service.nsw.gov.au. We also supplement this online hub with the ability to speak to one of our business concierges. So that's talking to a real person for you to ask any of those niggling questions that you might have and that you'd like a real-time answer for. Our business concierge hotline, 13 77 88, is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday, and the service is there for you. The business concierge can help you with any questions you have about support and guidance on offer. We can help you in your application for the Small Business Support Grant. We can point you in the direction of advice from our colleagues at Business Connect and the Small Business Commissioner. And we can provide information to you about fee waivers and changes to commercial leasing. So I'd encourage you to speak to a business concierge if you have any questions that you'd like answers to. One of the biggest questions that we're facing at the moment from small businesses is, what financial assistance is there out there for me? The Small Business Support Grant is a key initiative that the New South Wales Government has launched. This is a grant of up to $10,000 for small business owners to keep their business operating during these difficult times. All the details about who is eligible, the information that you need and how you can apply is available on our website. But I'll step through some of the key pieces of information to help you apply. To be eligible, you must be a small business that has a registered ABN. You need to be based in New South Wales and you need to employ between 1 and 19 staff. You'll need an annual turnover of more than $75,000 and a payroll under the $900,000 threshold. In addition, you'll need to have experienced a decline in turnover of at least 75%. The applications for this grant are open until 1 June. And some tips in terms of the application process. The application process doesn't allow you to save as you progress through the application. So I'd encourage you to ensure you've got all the documentation handy at the start and before you commence the application process. Businesses will need to upload a BAS, and some businesses in certain industries will also need a letter from their accountant explaining the meeting of the eligibility criteria for that business. If you have any questions at all about the small business grant, our business concierge are on the line to help you work through your application and answer any questions you might have about criteria. So please don't hesitate to give them a call. We want to see all eligible businesses be able to access this grant as quickly and easily as they can. Fee waivers are another important support mechanism that the government has put in place. So this allows for a variety of waivers of renewal fees, application fees for licences, registrations and permits. These apply to liquor licences for cafes, restaurants, bars and hotels and many other licensed venues. It relates to building contractor licences, motor vehicle repairer licences and some home building certificates. There's also a range of other waivers, so please check our website to see if any do relate to your business. Many of these waivers will be processed automatically, which means that there's nothing for you to do other than check that the fee waiver has gone through. But if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to contact our business concierge and check our website to see what might apply to you. Changes to commercial tenancies and leases are critical issues for small businesses, and our business concierge are very happy to work through these changes for you and what they might mean for your business. So you might be aware that there have been freezes on rent increases, bans on lease terminations and a new land tax relief package released. These should go some of the way to relieve financial pressures on small businesses, but there are obviously details in there that businesses need to work through for themselves, and we're happy to help. There's also a wonderful service that we do provide, which is to assist with mediations between landlords and tenants. So if you find yourself in a situation where you need additional support, please contact our business concierge on 13 77 88, and we'll put you in touch with the right people to ensure that those negotiations and discussions can proceed well and can meet the needs of all the parties and be done in the most appropriate way. Here at Service New South Wales, we also work very collaboratively with other support services across government. Business Connect is a free business advisory service in operation, and the good news is that at the moment, small businesses are able to access their sessions for free. So Business Connect advisors can have telephone or teleconference sessions with small businesses. They can provide great advice about cash flow, marketing, employees, and many of the issues that small businesses are facing at the moment. And I'd encourage you to call through our number so that we can put you in touch with a Business Connect advisor who will sit down with you and take the time to talk through and get to know the real issues that you're facing in your business and how to work through those. Similarly, we can put you in touch with the Small Business Commissioner's Office, who provide advocacy services and other services as well that you might wish to take advantage of. So for any of those types of services, contact us and we'll make sure we put you in touch with the right people. I hope this information has been useful to you. There's a lot of information on our website and there's information that you can also access through our business concierge through 13 77 88. Please don't hesitate to give us a call. We're here to give you all the information that you need and we wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Alex. Now let me introduce John Ayres from Revenue New South Wales.
Welcome everyone, my name is John. Today's webinar will be going through the payroll tax relief measures that the government has introduced as part of the COVID-19 economic stimulus package. So the two main measures that they've introduced is one, a 6-month deferral. So there's no need to make any payments for 6 months up until October 2020. The second is a 25% reduction on the 1920 payroll tax liability. And this is only available to customers who have a payroll under $10 million. So the first measure, which is the 6 months deferral, so this is a measure that's available to all payroll tax customers, and essentially it's a 6 months deferral across the current financial year and the next 3 months of the following financial year. So for the current financial year, no payments are required for the March, April and May 2020 returns. The June return is the annual reconciliation, so that is still required. However, the due date for the annual return has been moved from the 28th of July to the 30th of October. Now that is only for this current financial year. It will revert back to the 28th of July in the following financial year. So also the next 3 months of the following financial year, so the 2021 financial year, those first three monthly returns for July, August and September will also be deferred until the 30th of October 2020. For the 6 months deferral period, you do not need to register or apply. It's automatically applied to all payroll tax customers. You also do not need to advise us of your payroll tax liability for any of those months or whether you had a nil return. You can still make payments. You're still allowed to do that if you choose to. You can still also use our online services, our online monthly calculator, to input your wage figures to work out what your payroll tax liability is. If you do use the online calculator to transfer your monthly payments into the annual reconciliation, you can still continue to do this. After you've lodged your annual return, so on the 30th of October, you would have lodged your annual return, so you know what your 1920 liability is. You'll also know what your July, August and September monthly returns are for the following financial year. So that all those deferred payments for those 6 months are required on the 30th of October 2020. If you are having difficulty in making those payments, you can apply for an instalment plan. We do have an online instalment plan application that you can use. We also have some tax debt teams that you can call if you need to talk about negotiating any instalment plans to pay off that deferred debt. So the next measure is the 25% reduction on the 1920 payroll tax liability. So this is only available to payroll tax customers who have a payroll tax wage bill of under 10 million or less. So if your total Australian wages are 10 million or less, you will be eligible. If you are a member of a group, we are looking at the group's total Australian wages. The reduction will be automatically applied when you lodge your annual return. So the key is you must lodge your annual return to receive the 25% reduction. So that will need to be done by the 30th of October 2020. If you are a member of a payroll tax group, you need to be aware that you will need to enter in your other group members' payroll tax wages so that we ensure that you are meeting that 10 million cap. Please also be aware that the 10 million cap, it will be prorated on if there's any changes to your circumstances. So if you're entering or leaving a group and you need to do a part period return, or if you're only employed for part of the year, the 10 million will be prorated based on the number of days you've employed during the financial year. So for example, if you're only employed for 6 months of the year, that 10 million cap will be prorated down to 5 million. So you must ensure that your total Australian wages, or if you're a member of a group, your total group Australian wages are under that prorated reduced amount. We also, when you lodge your annual return as a result of the 25% reduction, if you are entitled to a refund, then that refund will be processed as normal when you lodge your annual returns. So that's pretty much it for the two measures. There's a lot of information on our website. There are a lot of frequently asked questions, so FAQs, that are available there as part of the COVID-19 stimulus package. So please go to our website and have a look at those. There's also further information regarding payroll tax there as well. We also have some contact numbers there for the payroll tax teams. So if you need to ask any more questions around the stimulus package, give that number a call. We also have an email address there, so send those through. Also, when you lodge your return, if you require any assistance with a payment plan, you can give that number a call, but we also have the online instalment plan available for you as well, so you can use our online services. So that's it for the day. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thanks, John. I'd like to now introduce Jim Kelly from Safe Work New South Wales.
Hi, I'm Jim Kelly, Director for Health and Safe Design from Safe Work New South Wales. I'm here to talk to you today about Safe Work New South Wales and our role and how we can help you with managing the COVID-19 crisis. Safe Work New South Wales is the work health and safety regulator for New South Wales. We offer a range of services, including advice on work health and safety. We provide licences and registration, particularly for dangerous work. We investigate workplace incidents and enforce the work health and safety laws as a regulator. And we also do a lot of work in terms of injury prevention, assisting businesses preventing injuries in the workplace. So Safe Work New South Wales is obviously the work health and safety regulator and has a key role to play in managing the COVID-19 pandemic crisis when it comes to workplace health and safety. All businesses have an obligation to provide a safe workplace. And during a pandemic with an illness as contagious as COVID-19 is, workplaces must take steps to control the risk to their workers and others in the workplace. Whilst we appreciate this is extremely challenging times, Safe Work New South Wales has modified our response to ensure it's reasonable and proportionate to the challenges that small business and other businesses face. We have outlined our statement of regulatory intent on our website that essentially outlines how we will take a proportionate approach to our compliance and regulatory response functions to ensure that we consider the demands that are placed on businesses at present. Whilst businesses may be responding to public health orders that have a significant impact on your ability to trade or operate your business at present, Safe Work New South Wales will be reducing our regulatory burden through online or telephone means wherever practicable. However, we will respond to serious incidents and fatalities as they arise in the normal regulatory manner. We will take a supportive and educative approach when it comes to assisting businesses with their obligations to control the risk of COVID-19. We recognise this is unique times and businesses need assistance to create a safe and healthy work environment. This slideshow today will outline some of our expectations in relation to COVID-19 and how we can support and assist you. So a number of public health orders are in place issued by the New South Wales Minister for Health that place restrictions on gatherings and movement in general and specific restrictions on certain activities such as air and maritime transportation or those who operate in aged care facilities, for example. I urge all of you to familiarise yourself with the public health orders and the best place to go is the newsouthwales.gov.au website. These are changing and these orders may have a direct impact on your business. The orders to direct certain businesses to close, such as food and drink premises, pubs and entertainment facilities. However, special exemptions do apply and businesses are encouraged to review the orders on the website, as I mentioned. As of the 21st of April, travel for the purpose of work and gatherings essential for work were exempt from the 2-person limit ruling in a public place. A number of other scenarios are identified as essential gatherings and therefore exempt from the orders in relation to limitations to persons on a premises. These include gatherings at an office building, a farm or a factory or a construction site that is necessary for the normal operation of the business. Again, I encourage you to refer to the public health orders for these specific guidelines. An example would be for road workers and a local government worksite, maintaining a road, they may need to gather in groups of more than 2. that may not be practicable to always maintain social distancing. However, where essential, workers are required to do their task. This can be accommodated both within the public health orders and the work health and safety directions. Safe Work New South Wales is not responsible for the New South Wales public health orders. The New South Wales Police will enforce this on behalf of the government. Safe Work New South Wales, as a work health and safety regulator, is responsible for the work health and safety laws that apply to all businesses permitted to operate during this time. Employers must do everything that is reasonable and practical to eliminate the risk of a worker contracting COVID-19 at the workplace. And where not reasonably practical, they must minimise the risk to ensure COVID-19 is managed. In practical terms, this means that the business must do whatever is practical to ensure physical distancing is maintained between workers, customers, and members of the public. They must provide suitable amenities to control the risk of exposure to infected surfaces, including regular cleaning, disinfecting, high-touch surfaces, and where physical distancing is not practicable, consider alternative methods of control, such as physical barriers or protective equipment where practicable. Safe Work New South Wales recognises it is not always reasonable to conduct the day-to-day operations of your business under these circumstances. In addition, supplies of key equipment may be difficult to obtain. These factors will be taken into consideration by our inspectors when determining what is reasonable and practical on a case-by-case basis. Employers are expected to consult with their workers to identify the risk of exposure and to put in place controls to manage those risks as far as is reasonable and practical. Particular attention should be taken to workers who may be identified as vulnerable. So those workers who are elderly, over the age of 60 years of age, or who are immunosuppressed. Specific controls should be in place to ensure that those workers can work isolated from others and maintain physical distancing. So all businesses and workers must comply with the New South Wales public health directions, as mentioned earlier. When it comes to workplace, the controls are simple but effective. Workers should maintain effective physical distancing or social distancing of at least 1.5 metres between workers wherever possible. And they should ensure they maintain good personal hygiene measures and cleaning measures to avoid spreading the illness and disease in the workplace. Workers should raise any concerns they have in relation to contracting COVID-19 with the employers, and employers are expected to consult with their workers in identifying those risks and control measures. Workers must work with their employer to monitor the extent of the COVID-19 in their community to ensure that they are abreast of the risk and take steps to respond to those as they arise. If workers or all managers require assistance and support, they can reach out to Safe Work New South Wales as a work health and safety regulator via our telephone number 13 1050, via our online website, or via our Speak Up app. Regardless of the workplace, Safe Work New South Wales advises 3 simple measures. Firstly, hygiene practices. COVID-19 spreads through coughs and sneezes, as well as contact with contaminated hands, surfaces, or objects. It is vital all workplaces provide for and maintain increased hygiene and cleaning practices. This may include providing safe access to soap, fresh water, and hand sanitizer, requiring and reminding everyone to wash your hands frequently with soap and water, especially before and after eating and after going to the toilet or touching your face. Reminding workers to cough into their elbow, not their hands. If they use a tissue, they must put it in the bin immediately. Reducing the number of people handling the same pieces of equipment and regularly clean all surfaces where multiple workers must be using them. Increasing the frequency of cleaning and work amenities, and reducing the use of hard copy documents, e.g. plans by multiple workers. In relation to social distancing, sites should accommodate the government's health directions and guidance on social distancing wherever practicable. That is 1.5 metres between persons and 1 person per 4 square metres. Persons, including construction workers, must not participate in a gathering in a public place of more than 2 persons unless this is required for the work you are undertaking. To do this, the business should consider arrangements such as reducing the number of personnel on site at any one time. This may include rescheduling non-essential tasks, requiring workers not directly involved with building work to work from home, Utilise off-site prefabrication where practicable. Do induction and toolbox talks in smaller groups, in larger spaces, or where practicable, online via FaceTime, Zoom or Skype means. Staggering the start and finish and break times for your staff to reduce the number of workers on site in any specific location at any given time. Rearranging or scheduling works to reduce the number of trades or working staff who have to work together in a particular area of the site on any particular task. And reducing unnecessary contact with members of the public or suppliers. And restricting site access to approved personnel only, reducing the number of public and customer contact. And thirdly, workforce screening. And we encourage workers or businesses to consider screening workers who are particularly high risk before they start work. This may include asking workers about their age, older workers, or workers who are chronically with medical issues or immunosuppressed workers, such as those suffering from cancer, should be isolated from other workers. Questions along the lines of, have the workers been overseas in the last 2 weeks? Have they been in contact with people with a confirmed case of COVID-19? Should be asked as part of a screening regime. To help prevent the spread of COVID-19, daily screening questions can be considered as workers enter the site, such as, have they experienced cold or flu-like symptoms? Have they had a temperature? Or have they been in contact with others, as I mentioned earlier? If the answer is yes to any of these questions, the worker should not be permitted in the workplace and they should be encouraged to either work from home or seek medical attention as required. If workers are permitted to work from home, they are still covered under the Work Health and Safety Act 2011. This means employers have an obligation to make sure the health and safety of their workers is maintained when they work from home. Workers also have a duty to take reasonable care for their own health and safety and to not adversely affect the health and safety of others. When making decisions about workers working from home, employers should consider, firstly, consulting with the worker, ensuring the relevant persons they are working from home is appropriate. That is, does the individual worker have an appropriate workspace? Can they maintain and keep up to date with relevant COVID-19 risks and appropriate control measures? And are they seeking advice and support should they be exposed to the risk? During consultation, employers should consider a range of factors, including the communication requirements to stay in touch with their workers, how they will manage the workflow of work, what equipment do they require to work from home, and any specific workers' compensation requirements the worker may need. Reasonable steps should be taken to ensure a worker's home area is safe and meets reasonable work health and safety requirements. An assessment of the work area should be carried out, where possible, to enable the worker to work from home safely. This can be done through either a self-assessment checklist or perhaps a video assessment of the person's workspace at home. Risks should be considered including slips, trips and falls, workstation ergonomics, manual tasks if they are undertaking any, electrical safety risks need to be considered, and also the psychological or mental health risks of the worker working remotely if they are isolated and doing high risk, high demand work. And any other environmental factors that need to be considered. In some circumstances, working from home may not be appropriate because of the person's individual setup or because of the risks identified through that consultation. If a worker is suspected or confirmed to have COVID-19 virus, you as the employer must make sure they stay away from the workplace. You should encourage them to seek medical advice or contact their general practitioner as soon as possible. Employers or PCBUs, persons conducting business undertaking, have an obligation to notify Safe Work New South Wales of a case of COVID-19 that arises out of the conduct of the business or undertaking. So should a person be identified as a possible COVID-19 case from their work exposure, then there is obligations under the Work Health and Safety legislation for you to notify Safe Work New South Wales. You can notify us by calling 13 10 50, and you should notify if you know a worker has been confirmed, as well as you should also contact the COVID-19 national hotline on 1800 020 080 for advice on how to respond to cleaning and disinfecting the workplace and to make contact with your public health unit who will assist with contact tracing. Some simple steps to take when you suspect a person is confirmed with COVID-19 and they're attending the workplace. Firstly, you must isolate the person from others and provide a disposable surgical mask, if available, for the person to wear whilst they make themselves exit the workplace in seeking medical attention. You should, as the employer, ring the National COVID-19 hotline, as I mentioned earlier, 1800 020 080, for advice from the health officials on contact tracing and cleaning and disinfecting the work environment. You should identify who at the workplace has been in close contact with that infected person in the previous 24 hours prior to them showing symptoms. This will assist the public health unit with contact tracing as required. Those in direct contact should be sent home and isolated until further notice. You should ensure the person has transport to their home or to a medical facility, ideally travelling by their own means in personal transport, or if necessary, being escorted by someone from the workplace. You should clean the area where the person was working and all places that they have been in direct contact with. This may mean evacuating those areas until appropriate cleaning can be conducted. Cleaning should involve high-grade disinfectant as part of the cleaning process, and the cleaning staff should wear appropriate personal protective equipment. Cleaning the area where the close contact people were in common areas, such as amenities, toilet facilities, or their immediate workspace, is a priority. You should review your risk management control measures in relation to COVID-19 to ensure whether their work activity needs to change to reduce further exposure to other workers. And it's important, as part of the recovery for work process and the workers' compensation process, that you stay in touch with your workers to assist them through their treatment, recovery, and return to work eventually. The current COVID-19 pandemic can cause heightened anxiety and stress for workers and the general public. Small business owners have an important role to play in ensuring the support for workers and the risk factors that lead to mental ill health is managed as far as reasonably practical. A mentally healthy work environment is good for the worker and good for the business, both physically and mentally at this time. Some actions that workers and businesses can take include managing the risk of mental health in the workplace. Safe Work New South Wales and New South Wales Health provide extensive advice on mental health in the workplace, and we encourage you to look at our website. Identifying and supporting workers in your business that may be more vulnerable to psychological injury. These could be frontline workers exposed to customer demands, or they could be workers working in isolation from home for long periods of time. Recognise the signs that your workers may be experiencing difficulties from a mental health perspective. They may be struggling or their behaviour may change due to lack of communication or the inability to have support and assistance from the workplace on a day-to-day basis. Don't forget to ask, are you okay? And follow up with support and assistance on a regular basis. Employers, managers and businesses need to lead the change, consulting with workers regularly on how their work will be conducted and supporting them through the social distancing change and the modified work conditions. Enable flexibility and consider how good work design can lead to better support and better workflow for workers, and assisting those workers who are juggling the family demands of home-based schooling and work from home simultaneously. This can be a very challenging time for many. Ensure clarity around the entitlements that can be accessed during this time for caring responsibilities for those themselves or their family members who may be experiencing ill health or potentially contracting the virus and needing to work from home or support others who have contracted the virus. Remember, workers who may be on extended leave or on workers' compensation still need to be kept informed of the changing work environment and assisted in terms of their return to work. It's really important to connect with workers to the support functions that are out there. That may include those in your workplace or other not-for-profit organisations such as Beyond Blue, the Black Dog Institute, or Heads Up programs. They have a wealth of resources and telephone support to assist. If workers are required to work remotely, whether it be from home or in the field of remote regional locations, please keep them in contact on a regular basis and ensure they are supported. Safe Work New South Wales has partnered with the Black Dog Institute to provide a wealth of resources for both workers, managers and businesses, including free online mental health training delivered by experts from the Black Dog Institute. I'd encourage you to have a look at our website and reach out to the Mentally Healthy Workplaces program to sign up to some of these free programs. If you have workers who have time or capacity whilst working from home, these are great opportunities for them to tap into these online resources to ensure their productivity before returning back to normal in the future. So to wrap up, Safe Work New South Wales, as a work health and safety regulator, has a wealth of information and resources available to small businesses to assist them to manage through the COVID-19 crisis. Your business may be experiencing extremely difficult times due to reduced customer demand or due to increased customer demand and unique working environments. Either way, it's an important time for you to support your workers through this difficult time. It's also a very important time for you to proactively manage the work health and safety risk presented by COVID-19. You can use this time to tap into resources available for running business once it returns to normal, or for assisting business through this very difficult time. Resources include the newsouthwales.gov.au website for everything to do with COVID-19 and the government support for you. Safe Work New South Wales for both COVID-19 resources and for others that may be suitable for work health and safety in general. A great opportunity to tap into training and development for your workers at this time. Again, New South Wales Health has all sorts of information in relation to the public health orders and how they impact on your business. And Safe Work Australia has industry-specific tailored information for businesses that work across borders, and it may also be useful for your needs. As I mentioned throughout this presentation, it is vital that you consult with your workers, both when they are working remotely or when they're in the office or in the work environment. You should consult with the workers about the issues associated with COVID-19, the potential risk of exposure, and the methods for controlling that risk. You should regularly review your controls as the circumstances change. As the virus and the pandemic progresses, you may need to increase or reduce your controls proportionate to the public health orders and the type of business that you undertake. You must plan now for how you will respond to a positive case in your workplace, should it arise. So put in place a system of work that yourself and your managers know how to respond should someone identify with symptoms relating to COVID-19. You should also commence planning for how your business will return to normal, gradually scaling up as the community recovers from this pandemic. This will be a prolonged process that will require a staged approach to returning to business as usual, and it's vitally important that your business can respond promptly whilst managing the risk of COVID-19. I encourage you all to look up those resources, to put in place proactive steps to manage COVID-19 risk in your business, and I wish you all the best in providing a safe, healthy and productive workplace over the next 6 months. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. I'd like to introduce Craig Preston from Training Services New South Wales.
Hi, my name's Craig Preston. I'm the Relieving Manager of the Apprenticeship and Traineeship Unit, which is part of Training Services New South Wales and the Department of Education. We are responsible for administering apprenticeships and traineeships in New South Wales. What this means is that we develop all the policy and processes around apprenticeships and traineeships. We approve apprenticeships and traineeships. We support apprenticeships and traineeships, which includes mediation, dispute resolution, having a bit of a chat to apprentices and trainees, employers as necessary. We process any variations to apprenticeship and traineeship arrangements. And at the end of the day, we complete apprenticeships and traineeships and issue certificates of proficiency. Apprenticeships and traineeships have had a bit of a rough run lately. First, we had the drought in regional New South Wales. Then we had bushfires at the beginning of this year, and now we've got COVID-19. What that's meant is that probably since around June last year, the number of apprentices and trainees that have been approved in New South Wales, that the employers have been taking on, those numbers have been reducing. The more significant reductions that we're seeing have occurred since January. January, February and March, we've been seeing a reduction in new apprenticeships and traineeships being taken on by employers of about 20 to 30%. We're expecting April probably to be a similar similar situation. The goals of the apprenticeship and traineeship unit in this current environment is to, one, still encourage employers to take on apprentices and trainees. Some industries haven't been negatively impacted by COVID-19. So what we'd like to see is that they continue to take on apprentices and trainees. Some industries are actually busier than they were before all this happened. So we're hoping to see some increased numbers there, and we'd encourage employers to keep employing and taking on apprentices and trainees. For those employers who are struggling because of COVID-19, who have either had to close businesses or who have had a significant downturn in business, what we're trying to do is support them with trying to maintain the apprentices and trainees that they've currently got. So they're our main two objectives at the moment. So we're trying to help. So keeping these goals in mind, what we've tried to do is, with respect to new approvals, we've tried to relax requirements around signing up new apprentices and trainees. We've tried to reduce red tape, make it easier, make it quicker, so it's one less thing that businesses have to worry too much about. For those employers who are struggling to maintain their existing apprentices and trainees, what we've done is we've relaxed a lot of our policies and procedures with a view to increasing flexibility for employers at this time. So a lot of those things that we've changed will allow you to make changes to how you employ and manage your apprentices and trainees, with a view to you and your apprentices and trainees working out how you can keep them employed, how you can keep them in their apprenticeships and traineeships. So we've relaxed things like you don't have to tell us if you're having to move your apprentice or trainee from full-time to part-time. You don't have to tell us if for some reason you've had to temporarily suspend the formal training side of things. You don't have to tell us if you're temporarily suspending your apprenticeship or traineeship. If there's more significant changes or more permanent changes, then of course we want you to tell us about those things. But if you're just making changes in consultation with your apprentice or trainee, and it's all about helping you manage the current circumstances that you're dealing with better, then we've relaxed rules around those things. So in addition to the policy and process changes that we've made to help employers, there's also a number of other programs and services that the New South Wales Government provides to assist employers, to encourage employers, to help employers with the employment of apprentices and trainees. These include fee-free apprenticeships and traineeships. Fee-free apprenticeships came in on the 1st of July 2018, and under that program, employers no longer have to pay the $2,000 administration fee. The other one that we actually introduced on the 1st of January this year was fee-free traineeships. So same again, if you employ a trainee from the 1st of January this year, you don't have to pay the course costs for those. So for both apprenticeships and traineeships, everything is free for both the learner and the employer. Workers' compensation insurance, apprenticeship incentive scheme, that's a scheme that's available to assist employers employing apprentices, and it reduces what they're required to pay. Payroll tax rebate scheme, another scheme that allows employers to claim rebates for apprentices that they've employed. And something else which isn't really apprenticeships and traineeships, but it is something significant that training services does, is we provide funded part qualifications and full qualifications. So if at this time you do have some short-term emerging training needs that you need to implement for your staff in order to meet some of the challenges that COVID-19 is throwing up, we also do help in that particular area as well. Now, it's not just that we provide support for employers. We also provide support for apprentices and trainees in this space. The fee-free apprenticeships and traineeships that I mentioned before, obviously fee-free apprenticeships, most of that the employers are required to pay. However, traineeships, often the trainees were required to pay. So if the employer didn't meet those costs, so no one pays now for traineeships commencing after 1 January this year. One of the changes that we've made in response to COVID-19 is we're allowing apprentices and trainees who have had their training arrangement cancelled to continue with their formal training whilst they're looking for another employer. This is important. It keeps them engaged in something useful whilst they're looking for another employer. It demonstrates their commitment to their trade or their vocation for prospective new employers. But it also means that when they do find another employer, they're ready to go, and there's been no gaps in their training. We also, the New South Wales Government provides transport concessions for apprentices and trainees, particularly with respect to Opal cards and transport in the metropolitan area. Obviously, that mightn't be a big issue at the moment, but it's another area of support that we provide. For those in rural New South Wales, we also have the travel, accommodation and relocation assistance that's available. That's where apprentices and trainees can claim for travelling to training where they may need to do some bulk training, a week at a time, that sort of stuff. So that's available. And for apprentices, we also, the New South Wales Government also provides a $100 rebate on car registrations for apprentices. So as you can see, we do provide a fair bit of support. We're trying to do better at this time when COVID-19's on. And if you would like further information with respect to anything that I've covered today, I would encourage you to go to our website, training.newsouthwales.gov.au, or call us on 13 28 11. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks, Craig. I'd like to welcome Michael Miller from the Small Business Commission.
Hi everyone, Michael Miller, Director of Mediation Services with the Office of the New South Wales Small Business Commission. I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about the New South Wales implementation of the National Cabinet Code for Commercial Leases. First thing to note would be that we have to go back to the regulation that was made. The code's been out for a little while, and each state has done an implementation of that code according to whatever laws that they might have already existing. So in New South Wales, we had the Retail Leases Act, which covered retail leases and not commercial, industrial, other sort of non-retail but still commercial leases. So the regulation that's been introduced adds to the existing regulation, the legislation, as it is surrounding retail leases and has been for a long time, but it also incorporates the non-retail commercial leases. So the name of the regulation, which you'd need to go back as your source of truth, is the Retail and Other Commercial Leases COVID-19 regulation for 2020. Essentially, these are temporary measures effective 6 months from the 24th of April 2020. And the whole idea is that we try to maximise the number of businesses that can resume after the public health orders have been lifted. One important question is going to be, who are the eligible tenants? And the regulation talks about impacted lessees. In summary, it does include retail, office and industrial. The tenants should have had at least a 30% decline in turnover compared to a prior year, month or quarter. Their annual turnover should have been less than 50 million in 2018-19, and you would note that these are the same tests as for the JobKeeper program. I did want to make a point though that just because the regulation may not apply in a particular circumstance doesn't mean that negotiation of an outcome is impossible. If there are some impacts that perhaps don't meet the thresholds, or there might be businesses that don't quite fit. That doesn't mean that negotiation of a deal going forward is not possible. It just depends on the circumstances and the underlying motivators for the parties to that lease. And my office, Mediation Services, we can still assist with general negotiation and also mediation. The regulations in giving some force to the code, the national code that was agreed, they are trying to provide for eligible tenants to be able to seek a rent reduction. That rent reduction is to be proportional to their decline in turnover, and at least half is waived. See, I've made a spelling error there, but that's intended to say at least half is waived. The rest that is not waived, so it's going to probably be half that's not waived, is going to be deferred, and it's over the balance of the lease term. Now, commercial leases can vary in their lease, the fixed term of their lease. It could be that you've got something as small as a 1-year lease. You might have a 5, 10, even a 15-year lease. So the idea is that whatever the balance of the term is, that the deferred amount of any rent reduction is spread out. And the regulation also says no less than 24 months, but it could be a longer period as well. And the regulations also provide that a tenant can't be evicted for arrears if they fall into these categories. They can't be evicted for not staying open. So there are some leases have core trading hours, for example, where tenants are all supposed to stay open at least for those hours. But the tenants impacted under this regulation, there wouldn't be an eviction for that. And that the lessors can't call on security bonds or bank guarantees for that period. What if you do attempt to try to negotiate something and you can't get an agreement, or perhaps you don't even really know how to start that? Many matters can be resolved just through private negotiation, and we're hearing stories of them every day where they really don't need a third party. The parties are quite comfortable in their own negotiations, and they've managed to settle something, usually a short-term arrangement. There's plenty of uncertainty around at the moment about what comes next, but to resolve that uncertainty, parties are able to come to their own agreements. Mediation, though, is still required for retail matters that can't be resolved, and that's under the Retail Leases Act. So you'll find that there are, just in normal times, you get matters that can't be resolved through private negotiation, may or may not be eligible or impacted tenants under the code. But mediation is still something that is there, as it always has been, under the Retail Leases Act. For impacted lessees and landlords that are subject to the regulation, then mediation is now also required for that during this COVID-19 period. And just a reminder that mediation can be conducted for commercial leases that are not covered by the current regulations as well. There may be pre-existing issues, or the parties may not meet the particular thresholds, but it is still available to try to help people come to the best possible commercial outcome. What if mediation doesn't work? Well, I'm happy to say that there is a very high chance that you will make some good progress through the mediation. If you haven't had any success through your own private negotiations, or you have felt there are barriers that won't allow you to make progress, you should get it into the mediation system that we have. We'll file an application. We'll assign a case manager, and of all of the matters that get filed with us, history has shown, going back a few years now, that more than 90% of the matters filed will resolve prior to a court needing to make a determination for the parties. You can still pursue claims through the normal court systems, but there is this requirement that mediation be attempted. And so for the commercial leasing matters, mediation should be attempted through our office. You should also be aware that there are certain cases which might require urgent orders to be made, and courts can still hear those urgent orders. But I would note that you may be subject to restrictions on what you can do because of these regulations if you're a landlord. So it would be sensible, even when something quite urgent needs to happen, it would be sensible to try and make contact with our office, consider an application for mediation, consider negotiations, but the courts still function to take urgent applications as well. And the court has to have regard to the Code of Conduct principles. And that's enshrined in the regulation. I thought I'd touch on some of the principles now. The regulations, as New South Wales has set them out, group them in a different way to just the 1 through to 14. So that's why I've got the numbers consecutive. Number 1, landlords must not terminate leases due to non-payment of rent. So that's an idea that is meant to try and put the brakes on a little bit, not make any hasty decisions without trying to refer back through a negotiation and mediation services. The other one connected to that is that landlords aren't to draw on security for non-payment of rent if they're subject to the regulation. And the landlords aren't to apply any prohibition or any penalties, in inverted commas, if tenants reduce opening hours or cease to trade during COVID-19. So there are obviously a lot of different factors, depends on the business on a case-by-case basis, but the essential idea is that there aren't to be any sort of landlord prohibitions, penalties, consequences if they're closing or reducing hours because of COVID-19. Rental waivers and extensions are another important part of the code that's referred to in the regulations. So it says rental waivers must constitute no less than 50% of the total reduction in rent, where you do find a downturn and then there is to be a proportional reduction in rent. Then waivers no less than 50%, and deferrals should be spread out over the balance of the lease and for a period of no less than 24 months. The tenant should also be provided with an opportunity to extend its lease for an equivalent period of the rent waiver and deferral period. That can work in both parties' interests. Things are dealt with on a case-by-case basis, and certainly if you're able to resolve an outcome that works for both the landlord and the tenant in the longer term and ensures the business can get back to doing what it does well and the tenancy can continue successfully and complete as we return to some more normal type of operations, then the variations on the term of the lease can be something that becomes very important to both parties as well, to have that security of tenure and also the guaranteed yield for the landlord. Principle 3, landlord must offer tenants proportionate reductions in rent based on the reduction in trade. There is to be a freeze on rent increases, and that any reduction in statutory charges are to be passed on to the tenant as well. So under the regulation, if they are impacted lessees, then all of those things are to apply. Again, we are quite open to helping people to negotiate these things either between themselves if we can help to empower that or give some guidance if there's some concerns about it, or if you do need a third party involved to help with the compliance in this regard, then we do have mediators that are prepared to do that. I think that concludes the presentation, so I'd be looking forward to hearing any questions, and whether they be now as part of this presentation or certainly following up the channels to ask our team more about what is required, what can be done, what can't be done, and what we can do to help in the negotiations. Ultimately, what we're looking for is to support landlords and tenants of commercial leases to come to arrangements that work for both of them. So look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Michael. I'd like to start our question and answer session. Hi, thanks so much to Michael and all our panellists today. I know there's a lot of information to take in, so I just wanted to reiterate that we will send you an email tomorrow with a summary of today's session and the answers to the questions we're going to go through now. And there'll be a video available for you to watch on demand online by the end of next week. So thanks so much. We've got lots of questions so far. If you've got any additional questions, please type them into the text box on the right hand of your screen. So our first question is around support for new businesses and also asking around the reduction in turnover. So if you want to see a 75% reduction in the first 2 weeks of April, this business had made some changes by them to help them survive and had a big fall earlier in March. So Alex, could you talk to the support for new businesses through the COVID-19 grant?
I might hand that over to Lee for some of that detail. But I suppose it's very much worth exploring all of the support that is on offer via Service New South Wales. There's a lot of detail on the Service New South Wales website in terms of the range of services on offer, and our business concierges are always available between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. For you to call them on 13 77 88 to ask any questions where they can obviously talk through a lot of the detail about what is available for all businesses. But in relation to that question, I might pass over to Lee.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, it seems like we might have a technical difficulty there, so I'll just step on to the next.
Apologies. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Apologies, everybody. Look, without knowing the specific circumstances relating to this business, what I can say is to be eligible for the 10K grant, businesses need to show a 75% decline in turnover from a comparable period in 2019. Service New South Wales does have discretion in relation to new businesses and also businesses that, for example, have been affected by drought or some natural disaster, and the turnover in 2019 was not indicative of its usual turnover. So if your business falls into one of those two categories, I would encourage you to contact Service New South Wales to discuss your circumstances and your eligibility for the grant.
Thanks, Lee. And a question, I think, for Jim. A business owner has a small cafe and wants to understand the limitations of opening tomorrow. Do they need to sit customers back to back, or do their backs need to be more than 1.5 meters from one another?
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for the question. The rules are changing all the time, so we've just had advice that cafes, restaurants and bars are able to open with restrictions from Friday evening, I believe. The key restriction at present is a 10-person limit for customers based on the 4 square metre rule. So the first thing you need to determine as a small cafe owner is how many square metres do you have available for customers and how many customers can fit in within that cafe. So if you have a 40 square metre cafe, then you are able to accommodate up to 10 customers, and those 10 customers should be spaced as much as reasonably practicable apart. So you might have 4 tables of 4 for 4 different groups. So family groups or groups that come in together and sit at the same table. But if you have 10 individual customers, then those 10 individual customers need to have space within that 40 square metres to be accommodated. Obviously, if your cafe is smaller than 40 square metres, you won't be able to have the maximum of 10 people at this time. And obviously, if you have a restaurant or a facility larger than 40 square metres, then you are still restricted by the 10-person rule at this point in time.
Thanks, Jim. And I have another PPE question. A small business is asking how they can access PPE equipment.
So PPE obviously depends on what PPE you're looking for, but it includes things like gloves, masks, gowns, hard hats, helmets. We would encourage you to go through your usual suppliers for PPE as you would do prior to the COVID pandemic. Generally speaking, PPE is not required for all individuals. It really only is required when you're working in close contact with customers or others, and close contact is less than 1.5 metres for really more than a 15-minute period of time. We don't have access to PPE suppliers, so you really do need to go through your own supply network to secure PPE if it's required.
Thanks, Jim. And if you're having difficulty tracking down a supplier, please contact your local Business Connect advisor. They have a database of suppliers for a whole range of different PPE equipment. So register for an advisory session and they'll be able to help as well. A question for you, Alex. A small business is non-employing and turns over less than $75,000 a year, so they don't meet the criteria for the COVID-19 relief grant. What support's available for the government for a small business of that nature?
Thanks for that question. So there is a range of additional support, and again, I would ask people to look at the Service New South Wales website, where we outline the range of support that is available, and that support both from a state level and from a Commonwealth level as well. So looking at some of the support in addition to grants. The state government has announced changes to payroll tax to provide some level of relief. There are also fee waivers, so that relates to certain industries, and it will largely be automatically applied, but again, to provide relief to businesses in those sectors where they would ordinarily have to pay for renewals or application fees or registrations. There's also, for where it might be relevant, the deferral of the parking space levy. That won't apply, obviously, to all businesses, but has been put in place by the government. There are also a number of electricity and gas relief packages that we do refer to on our website that are worth businesses looking into. And then when we look at what the Commonwealth government has on offer as well, there's an SME guarantee scheme where the government will guarantee 50% of eligible loans. There's obviously the access to superannuation payments for sole traders, which is available. And the other thing that I think I would encourage businesses to consider is, as Karen had mentioned, to speak to a Business Connect advisor. This is a free service across New South Wales. These Business Connect advisors are experienced business people who can look at the current situation that businesses are facing and provide them with some advice, financial and non-financial, to help businesses work through this difficult time.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alex. And also through Business Connect, this is one of a series of more than 60 webinars that provide practical guidance to help your business pivot and survive through this difficult time. I have a question around fee waivers. Alex, are there any fee waivers on car registration? A business has 10 vehicles that have been sitting idle for a period of 2 months.
There are some fee waivers in that space. What I would encourage that business owner to do is to ring 1377 88 and a business concierge will be able to talk them through exactly whether what has been announced is relevant to their situation.
Thanks. And a question for John. Do you pay payroll tax on the JobKeeper payment?
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Good question. It's been a bit of a hot button issue. So yesterday, Parliament did pass a bill and it received assent today. So there is an exemption applicable to the JobKeeper payment for payroll tax, but it is only applicable to additional payments or top-up payments. So what that means is for an employee who's been stood down, the full amount of the $1,500 a fortnight JobKeeper subsidy would be eligible for the exemption. But if someone's receiving only $1,000 and the employer has to top up $500 so they meet the $1,500, that $500 would be exempt because it's an additional amount or a top up. But if your employee receives above the $1,500 amount, then none of that would be exempt for payroll tax because it's what they would normally earn. So it's only the additional payments that would be exempt for payroll tax.
Thanks, John. A question for you, Craig. A small business is looking at hiring an apprentice from a large company. They've had a look at the wage subsidy guidelines, and it looks like an apprentice can be recommenced by a large business from a small business, but not the other way around. Could you answer that? Hi, sorry, Craig, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. What I was saying was that it sounds like it's to do with the Commonwealth incentives, so nothing to do with us in the state. As far as we're concerned, a large employer can take on a recommencing apprentice or trainee, or from a small employer and vice versa. So what I'd suggest is to find out what the impact is from an incentive perspective. If you have an existing apprenticeship network provider, contact them. If you don't have an existing apprenticeship network provider, then I suggest maybe going to the following website: australianapprenticeships.gov.au. That's the Commonwealth website for apprenticeship network providers and all things with respect to Commonwealth incentives, and you might be able to find the information there.
Thanks, Craig. And I have a question for you, Michael. A business's lease ends at the end of May. Does the landlord need to maintain the current lease for 24 months? Sorry about that. We have a technical hitch. Let me go back to that question in a moment. A business owner is, I think this is one for you, Alex. A business owner has spasmodic rather than regular income, nothing for say 2 months and then a big payment. How do they submit a grant application that compares periods?
Thanks very much. Look, this is absolutely where we can help. So calling one of our business concierge on 137788 and talking through the nuances of your cash flow, and we can absolutely work with you because we want to work with businesses to make sure that they can access the payments where they absolutely are eligible. So to talk through the detail of your business with our business concierge is the first step, and they will talk through what we can do to accommodate those needs and what additional documentation or other advice that they can provide to help ensure that you can complete your application.
Thanks, Alex. Michael, are you ready for that question? No? Okay. Sorry, we've still got a hitch there. So I think a question for you, Jim. A business that conducts face-to-face first aid training, can they conduct this under the COVID-19 restrictions? And can they conduct face-to-face training outdoors if they have a maximum of 10 people gathered, so students and one instructor?
So yeah, very good question. You really need to look at a risk assessment for the type of training you're doing and look at what you can do to control the risks of COVID-19 infection in that particular case. So some aspects of first aid training can be done whilst maintaining social distancing. Other aspects such as CPR practical demonstration is obviously far more difficult, and the risks are greater if you're sharing an apparatus to practice your resuscitation practical demonstrations. So what I'd encourage that business to do a risk assessment to look at how they can maintain social distancing wherever practicable. If it's not practicable, in order to fulfill the requirements of the training, then you'll need to look at other control measures they can put in place. That could be start with pre-screening of students before they attend the training. It can include hand and hygiene for the equipment that might be required, and methods in place to make sure there's no cross-contamination between students for the equipment that's required.
Terrific, thanks. And Lee, I have an eligibility question for you. So a business interested in applying for the COVID-19 Small Business Grant, but they're an Australian public company. Does that mean that they're not eligible?
Thank you for the question. This issue came up in the early stages of the rollout of the grant. I wonder if the person that asked the question is a registered club. My understanding is a lot of those are public companies, and there was initially an exclusion on public companies that has now been removed. So I would encourage the business that asked the question to call Service New South Wales to check on their eligibility.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lee. So another eligibility question for the COVID-19 grant. A sole trader is full-time and has employees. Do those employees need to work a certain number of hours for her to be eligible for that grant?
So a business needs to have between 1 and 19 FTE. When we say FTE, we're talking about full-time equivalent employees. So that's 35 hours of work per week. So if this business has employees that cumulatively work for more than 35 hours a week, then they would be eligible for the grant.
Thank you. Jim, safe work question. Are you planning to produce event guidelines when restrictions are lifted, where there'll be large gatherings of people?
And yes, you can expect to see guidance in relation to how events will be managed moving forward from all agencies. Essentially, newsouthwales.gov.au will be the source of information for event management moving forward, and Safe Work New South Wales will contribute to that advice.
Thanks, Jim. And a question for Alex. As a business that's been both bushfire and COVID impacted, and is finding that filling in the forms and coordinating the evidence is very fatiguing, how can the business concierge team support that individual?
Thanks, Karen. And look, this is an issue and a concern that's been raised a lot. We worked very closely with bushfire impacted communities earlier this year, and we know the stress that people continue to be under. That's why our business concierge team is there. They are there to walk you through the process, provide all the support that they can in terms of helping applicants to complete the forms, the best way to provide any evidence, and also just to make that process as easy as possible. So if you call 1377 88, you will have someone there who will also log you as a customer of ours, a customer care, in a customer care program, and that will mean then that your information is recorded, and you shouldn't have to be repeating information if you need to ring multiple times, because we will have your information and progress of where you're up to on our system. So I really encourage you to call, because this is the reason for being for our business concierge to be there, to actually make this process as easy as we possibly can.
Terrific, thanks, Alex. And a question for you, Michael. How long, if a business wants to access small business lease mediation, how long will it take to assign a case manager to that business?
Good question. Thanks very much. Yes, we are triaging all matters that come through. So we are looking for the most urgent priorities, and we take action, obviously, where there's a lockout or a threatened lockout, or there's some other immediate crisis happening. We take action on those straight away and get them assigned immediately. If the matter comes through and it's in that second order priority matter, it's still only a few days before we get a case manager to take an initial action on that, and that includes reviewing whatever is submitted, checking the details for the relevant parties, and then making contact with those parties to start that process of negotiation, leading potentially to a more formal mediation setting as well. So we're getting a lot of applications come through, more than we've seen before, and we're loving every single one of them. So because we really want to be able to start ticking over towards that stage where people can feel a lot more certainty about what the future holds for them, both landlords and tenants. It's a very difficult time, so we're very happy to help.
Thanks, Michael. And another question for you. I'm not sure if this is from the perspective of a tenant or an owner, but what do they need to do in terms of documenting what rental waivers they've made and agreed between the tenant and the landlord?
Yeah, so if you're making your own private arrangements, then what we'd be encouraging, if at all possible, is you have that negotiation. Now, it might just be a voice negotiation to start with, rather than sending an email, waiting for a reply, having that it's a bit one way that way. But if you can have a verbal discussion, then that's a great way to start it. But when you are coming close to settling whatever the deal is going to be, whether that be for a month or a few months or longer than that, then we would really encourage you to put that in writing. Now, the best way of doing it, if you do have the ability or the resources to be able to do that, is probably to use lawyers and settle by way of a deed. But it doesn't need to be a deed necessarily. You can make your own judgments about what the right sort of agreement is that suits your particular purposes. What we would encourage, though, is that there's a clear intention to be binding on both parties. So rather than leave it as a loose or open agreement or subject to a few other things, we would really be trying to encourage both parties to settle with the intention to be bound and make it very clear. So documenting that can be important. It might start with notes about the conversation that can be exchanged fairly easily, but if it's a longer term deal and it's worth a lot of money, then you're probably going to want to settle it by way, ideally, of a deed that sets it out. If it can't be that, that's a formal sort of legal term, so your lawyers can explain that to you if you do need to go down that path, but certainly in writing and a binding arrangement. If you need help with that, though, if you're negotiating privately and you're finding that you're not able to perhaps negotiate as freely as you would hope to get the best outcome, and this applies whether you're a landlord or a tenant, we get plenty of applications coming in from both sides, then our case management process and the mediators that we appoint can also help you to structure something and to find what exactly works for you, not only in terms of the the dot points on any deal, but also in terms of what's the best way to put that together, have it executed to meet any requirements that the parties might have, and also any other formal requirements. We also do encourage you to use lawyers if there's a lot of money at stake, and in many business arrangements there is there's reasonably high stakes there and some high risks. Then we would encourage you in the right circumstances to speak to a lawyer that you might use regularly for various business things. Take their advice, even if it's an initial consultation, to give you some comfort and certainty. And you can use the services of a lawyer during the course of a mediation or after a mediation once you've got a binding arrangement settled, and if you wanted to formalise that or you had any other actions that you could take, then certainly lawyers can play quite an important role as well.
Thanks, Michael. And another question for you, Alex. Can a not-for-profit organisation running a local community space have help with any sort of funding? And it's not clear if this is an employing or a non-employing organisation.
Thanks, Karen. So not-for-profits are eligible for the small business grant if they meet some of the other criteria as well. So they're not excluded from that financial support. I think when I ran through previously some of the range of other support that could potentially also be relevant to this organisation from a state and Commonwealth government level. I might hand over to Lee, though, to see if she has anything to add beyond what I mentioned previously that the New South Wales government might have on offer.
Thanks, Alex. Look, I don't have anything to add in addition to that. Obviously, the key grant is the Small Business Support Grant, but that will depend on whether this not-for-profit is an employer. So, but again, I think contact Service New South Wales and they can look at your individual circumstances and provide advice.
Thanks, both. A question about how can I customise my cleaning business to provide better services to your clients? So through the Business Connect program, we've got a network of close to 100 business advisors. So you can have a business advisory session via video conference or phone to help you work through your priorities, whether that's to reach additional customers or to look at planning and the next steps for your business. So those services are free and you can register online. Choose the advisor that you need and register online. So I'm mindful that we've got a hard 2 o'clock deadline. So I just wanted to say that I hope today's session has been really useful to assist your business in this challenging time. I really encourage you to take advantage of all the support available from government, including obviously the COVID-19 grants, payroll tax relief, the business concierge services. So please do call the concierge and discuss your individual circumstances to what support's available for you. There's support, skills training available for you and your staff and your apprentices, rent relief and mediation services, support from Safe Work to help you get back to business, and also mental health support. So this is one of a series of more than 60 free Business Connect webinars and online workshops. So I encourage you to look and see what other training sessions might be suitable for your business. And I'd like to wish you all the best as we transition back from closure safely. So thanks so much. And if you haven't, please can you complete the poll and just let us know your feedback about today's session, and we'll send you an email tomorrow just summarising, answering any questions that we weren't able to get to this afternoon, and giving you the link to where the video will be available for you to download next week. Thanks.